Oklahoma has produced some of the greatest college football teams to ever step on a field. But what would a dream team of Sooners look like? In this video, I build an all-time Oklahoma squad that can't be matched. And we start at arguably the most important position, and one that OU runs deep at, quarterback. My starter is Kyler Murray. In my opinion, Murray is the most talented quarterback in Oklahoma history. The only thing that keeps him from ranking number 1 in my list of greatest OU quarterbacks of all time is that he only had one full year starting for the Sooners. But that year was magical. Over 4,300 yards passing, 42 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. That alone is impressive, but the dual threat quarterback also went for an additional 1,000 yards rushing and 12 rushing touchdowns. His historic season also saw him collect some hardware, including the Davey O'Brien Award, Manning Award, and the Heisman Trophy. Kyler gives his team a quarterback with a strong arm who has the mobility and speed to be a nightmare for opposing defenses. Who is Murray handing the ball off to? Billy Sims. It's a close call, but in my opinion, the best running back in Sooner history gets the nod here. Sims was not only the long-standing Sooner all-time rushing yards leader, he's now second, but he also won the Heisman in 1978. Narrowly missing winning a second the following year, leading the NCAA in rushing touchdowns both seasons. He was also a 2-time consensus All-American, so in summary, he put together unquestionably the best back-to-back years of any running back in NCAA history not named Archie Griffin. Just imagine combining Billy Sims and Kyler Murray in the backfield. It would be hard to find a better quarterback-running back duo at any school. After some internal deliberation, I felt like the way this Sooner offense would operate would most likely be out of the shotgun. So I'm foregoing a fullback to bring in another star running back, and everyone already knows who that is. It's Adrian Peterson. AD had one of the best freshman years in the history of running backs, narrowly missing becoming the first freshman ever to win the Heisman. His freshman year performance still holds the record for most rushing yards in the season in Sooner history. If it hadn't been for injuries, we might be talking about Peterson as one of the greatest college football players of all time. Unfortunately, injuries did derail him a bit, but it didn't keep him from finishing 4th all-time in career rush yards for OU. A unanimous All-American in 2004, there are honestly very few, if any, running backs in college football history that I would pick over a healthy AD. Think of the 1-2 punch Oklahoma had with Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. Now substitute Sims and Peterson in and let your imagination run free. My first wide receiver selection is Ryan Broyles. Production is king, and Broyles tops the list. He's Oklahoma's leader in receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns, and honestly it's not even close. This puts him amongst the elite in NCAA history. He ranks 3rd in career receptions and receiving yards and 6th in career receiving touchdowns. Combine this with the fact that he was a 2-time consensus All-American, and it leaves no doubt that Broyles solidifies his starting spot on this team. Next, I have D.D. Westbrook. I was torn here between a few great receivers for my second choice, but I ended up landing on Westbrook. I used the Kyler Murray thought process here. Are there other receivers that have had better overall careers than Westbrook? Absolutely. But his 2016 performance was the best we have ever seen in Norman. Over 1,500 yards and 17 touchdowns, which landed him the first and only Biletnikoff Award in OU history. While Broyles and Westbrook aren't the largest receivers in the world, they both consistently find ways to get open and would light up opposing secondaries. At tight end, I have Keith Jackson. Jackson could do it all. He could block, he could catch, and he could even run the ball, rushing for nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. His versatility and ability led him to be selected as a 2-time consensus All-American. He also helped lead the Sooners to a national championship in 1985. He finished his Sooner career with a little over 1,500 yards receiving and 15 touchdowns, averaging 24 yards per catch. Keep in mind, this was in a wishbone offense. Just imagine the numbers Jackson would have put up in a modern-day spread. Along the offensive line, we start with Trent Williams. Despite being just a 3-star prospect in 2006, Williams became a dominant force on the Sooners offensive line. He led the charge in a unit that anchored a Sooners offense that was the highest scoring team in the modern era that year. Williams was selected as a unanimous All-American in 2009 and would be a key part of the line keeping Kyler Murray clean in the pocket. Next, I have Jamal Brown. Brown might stake claim to being one of the best offensive linemen in Sooner history, and the most recent to win the Outland Trophy, awarded to the best interior lineman in college football. He was consistently a great lineman, but shone his senior year where he anchored the offensive line and was named a unanimous All-American. At guard, we start with Greg Roberts, who was another Outland Trophy winner along the offensive line. The consensus All-American slides into this spot once again to clear the way for Billy Sims as a punishing run block. Anthony Phillips also gets the nod here. Phillips played multiple positions on the offensive line during his time in Norman, but found success at guard, earning All-American honors twice. He was also a smart cookie, being named to the academic and athletic All-Big 8 team each year he played. At center, I have Tom Brehany. Now, hear me out here. While he wasn't exactly the most imposing force physically, at 6'2", 245, he did something very well. Run block. In the 1971 season, he was a force on the Sooners offensive line that paved the way for a record-breaking wishbone offense that put up 472 yards per game. He was also a two-time consensus All-American. Those accolades earned him the starting spot at center. Now let's transition to defense, where we start with arguably one of the best Sooner defenders of all time. It would be a crime not to put Leroy Selmon on this list. He dominated along the defensive front of a Sooner team that won back-to-back national titles in 74 and 75. Both seasons he was honored as an All-American and recorded a total of 104 tackles and 28 sacks over the 2 years. His final year saw him win 2 awards, the Outland Trophy and the Lombardi Award. Another mainstay in my defensive line is Tony Casillas. Casillas has been hailed by Barry Switzer as one of the best defensive linemen in Sooner history, and it's hard to argue with the man. Casillas anchored a tough Sooner defensive line that was the heart of a defensive unit that helped the Sooners win the 1985 national title. He was a 2-time consensus All-American in 84 and 85 and collected some additional hardware his final season, the Lombardi Award and UPI Lineman of the Year. And if Tony Casillas and Leroy Selmon aren't bad enough to deal with, take a step to the side and you have Tommy Harris to try to contain. Harris was a starter from the beginning of his Sooner career, and for good reason. That experience paid dividends as he went on the following 2 years to become a 2-time consensus All-American and a runner-up for the Lombardi Award before winning it the next year, despite constantly facing double teams. That wouldn't be a problem on this squad, and I have a feeling that Harris would wreak havoc on opposing offenses. Now we move to linebacker. Yes, I'm running a 3-4 defense, mainly because of how much depth the Sooners have at the position. And we start off strong with Brian Bosworth. No list of Sooner greats is complete without the Boz. Although he was well known for his wild, flashy style and cockiness, his play more than backed up his antics, leading the Sooners in tackles 3 years and winning 2 Butkus Awards. As a 2-time consensus All-American, he isn't just one of the best Sooner linebackers in history, but one of the best linebackers of all time. Rocky Calmus. You can just read his name out loud and tell that Rocky Calmus was born to play linebacker. One of the toughest players in Sooner history, he was an integral part of a defense that helped lead the Sooners to a national title in 2000. Like the Boz, Calmus led the Sooners in tackling 3 straight years and was a 2-time consensus All-American. He also won a Butkus Award and is 5th all-time in career tackles for OU. Teddy Lehman. 4.4 speed at linebacker was all it took for Lehman to get picked up by Bob Stoops and the Sooners, and his career didn't disappoint. He was named a consensus All-American in back-to-back seasons and won the Butkus and Chuck Bednarik Award in 2003, solidifying his spot as the top defensive player in the country. We round out our linebacking crew with Rod Schote. Despite being undersized, Schote shone on defense, setting multiple school records at the time, including total tackles in a career and in a game, where he currently ranks 6th in both categories. He also holds the honor of being the second Sooner ever to be named First Team All-America 3 times. Schote brings consistent excellence to this group of elite linebackers. Moving on to the secondary, at corner we have Ricky Dixon. Dixon is best remembered for his play in the Game of the Century 2 against Nebraska, where he had 2 interceptions and helped lead Oklahoma to an upset win over number 1 Nebraska in Lincoln. He had a knack for interceptions, currently 2nd in career interceptions for the Sooners, and holds the record for most interceptions in a single season with 9. He put together a great career in Norman, winning the Jim Thorpe Award as a senior and being named a consensus All-American. On the other side of the field, I have Derek Strait. Strait was a mainstay in the Oklahoma secondary, starting a total of 53 games over his time in Norman. He was also a ball-hawking corner, sitting at 7th all-time in career interceptions for the Sooners and 1st all-time in interception return yards with 397, a mark that puts him in the top 10 in NCAA history. He saved his best for last during his senior season, being named a consensus All-American while winning both the Nagurski and Thorpe Awards. My secondary has some experience playing together, and my first safety spot I have Brandon Everidge. Everidge made a position change from quarterback and excelled, becoming one of the hardest hitters the Sooners ever had. He was part of the 2000 National Championship team and was named to the All-American team in 2002. Everidge finished his career 4th in school history in tackles by a defensive back, and a very important note, went a perfect 4-0 against Texas. Everidge's running mate in the Oklahoma secondary for a couple years wraps up the defense. We all remember Roy Williams for his Superman tackle in the Red River Shootout, but that play is a pretty great summary of his whole career with the Sooners. He set a school record in tackles for loss in a season by a defensive back in 2000, and if you haven't figured out why that 2000 team won a title, defense wins championships. The hard-hitting safety followed it up in 2001, becoming a consensus All-American and winning the Nagurski and Thorpe Awards. Needless to say, I trust him as my last line of defense. On special teams at kicker, I have Michael Honeycutt. This one was difficult because especially recently Oklahoma has churned out many prolific kickers. But I'm giving the nod to the man that tops Sooner record books in both career field goals made and field goal percentage. At punter, I have Tress Way. Again, we look to the record books. Way is number 1 in total punt yards, which isn't always the best thing in the world, but he's also number 2 in average yards per punt. At returner, I have Antonio Perkins. Yes, special teams matters, especially if you have someone that is a home run threat each and every time he touches the ball, and Perkins personified that idea. A consensus All-American in 2003 as a return specialist, you really only needed one game of film to show why he won the award. UCLA. 3 punt return touchdowns and 277 yards. If you haven't already, watch the highlights. I honestly believe this all-time Sooner squad could stand toe-to-toe with any other all-time team in college football. But with so many great players in OU history, some positions were tough to choose from, so let me know in the comment section who I missed that you would have started. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, it helps me out a bunch. Check out this video here, and as always, have a great day and see y'all at the next one.